So hello friends, what are you doing and how are you doing? So hope you are doing great. Okay, so fine. So let us see today something very interesting, and that is Docker. So by the way, Docker is something that is quite buzzy and uh, very widely used in terms of especially in like when you are architecting something like microservices. So let us understand what Docker is actually first, and then we will see how to install and what we can do with Docker. So Docker is in very simple terms, you can see something like Docker is a kind of container, and whatever the dependency that is installed inside that container, including your OS and your all other dependencies, all other softwares, and etc. etc. So you can install Docker from the official Docker website, that is docs.docker.com, and you can install it on Mac, Windows, and Linux as well. So by the way, I am using Ubuntu machine so as my daily driver, as my workstation. So I have already installed Docker in my system, and you can check it out with go to the terminal and type in Docker version, and you will see something like this. So if you are getting the similar output, that means Docker is installed in your system, and if it is not already installed, so please go ahead and follow this nice tutorial, and you will be pretty much okay. And by the way, like Docker, before installing Docker desktop on Ubuntu system, you will also need to install, in some cases, like Docker engine was not installed automatically. So you need to install Docker engine explicitly. So first install Docker engine and then install your Docker desktop. Fine. So far so good. So now let us understand what Docker is and what we can do with Docker. Fine. So here I have landed on my VS Code, and this is a very simple Flask application. So I've already written it in order to save the time. So what it does, it imports Flask, an app instance is created, and a route is created, and this is the home function, method, home route, and it returns a string like welcome to the Dockerized Flask app in the browser, and here we are running the program with this syntax. So let's see it in action. So, and by the way, like I have already created a virtual environment named VNV. This is, in simple terms, many people follow the same structure like VNV, so that stands for virtual environment. So I have already activated it, and so let's run it, the program python app.py, and our development server has already been started. And if we go to this URL, and if we type in our browser URL, so we will see the output like welcome to the Dockerized Flask app. Fine, so far so good. So our Flask is running fine, no issues. So what if like I have to ship this application, or I have to clone this application, and I also wish to make sure that our application should work on each and every machine, each and every system, whether the user is using whatever the operating system is, like whatever version, whatever software dependency version we have used. So it should work each and everywhere. So that means like if we ship this our application in the same very way, that means the user has to, and by the way, if you look at the requirements.txt file, so user has to use, like I am using Python version 3.10. So user has to use the same exact configuration, system configuration, and etc. So but what if, but we don't want the, but actually we don't wish to force the user to install the exact specification. However, in other words, like the better way is like the user is free to use this application wherever he wishes to. So Docker suffices that issue, and that paves a way so that the one set of one application that ensures that Docker ensures that the application would run on any environment. And by doing so, like the way we can do that using a Docker file. So we have to create a Docker file. So for example, as I explained that I have already set up this application. So we have created a Docker file. So this is the, you can say like this is the entry point for building the Docker container. So this the first line. I will also try to explain this out. Let us rewrite it again. So by the way, like from, and we have to specify what the base image we need to use. So we will be using Python. By the way, this would be in the Python version 3.10, and we will use Alpine image. Okay, and secondly, like we have already instructed to use the Python version 3.10 and Alpine image. Alpine, actually you can use Ubuntu, Debian, Slimbuster, or Alpine, whatever you wish to. Fedora, it doesn't matter. So Alpine is a very small in size, so that is why we are using this image. Second, we have to specify work dir, that stands for working directory. So where your application would be, what would be the working directory of that application. So we are saying it to name it Flask app. Okay, and now we will copy. Actually, it is also all the commands. So Docker command starts, and all they should be in the caps. So copy star. Here dot means the from source. So here we are with this command we are telling the Docker to copy whatever that is inside this directory, this root directory, to the root directory of this work dir. So now we have copied it, and now we have to install all the dependencies like Flask and whatever there is written in the requirement.txt file. So we have to also do that. So we will run. By the way, run is the simple like run simply, I mean, executes the instruction. So we will run pip install -r and requirements.txt. So here with this line we are telling the Docker to install all the dependencies from requirement.txt file into the our this image which we are going to build. Okay, now there is one very interesting thing. I'll explain it out. Suppose first let me write it 5000 and then cmd and cmd actually is the actual command that would run inside the container. So it's a regular command actually. So Python, and what is this? Our script name is app.py. Fine. So expose is actually expose. With this expose instruction, we are telling that container would be listening to on port 5000 inside the container. So actually this 5000 port would be the window, a small hole so that the outside world can access the container, and the container can also access the outside world. Okay, so this is a this is what the purpose of this instruction, expose and 5000. So our container would be listening on 5000 port inside, and we will bind this 5000 port to the outside world while we run the Docker container. Okay, so let's save it. And one more thing, like here, if we go this way, so our WinV will also be copied to the Docker image, and actually which we don't want to do it. So let's create a ignore file. So Docker ignore, and it is simply just like your git ignore. So we have to tell it WinV, so that the WinV folder directory would not be copied to the Docker image. Fine. Now I think our this is okay, this is fine. So let's try to build it. And don't worry, so you will get each and everything on my GitHub page, and however all the commands I've already written that as well for the sake of clarity and simplicity. So let's try to build it. So Docker build /t, this is for the tagging purpose, so we can name it whatever we wish to. So we are telling it Flask app, and we can also provide any version info as well. So by the way, like this command is Docker command. Docker, we are instructing the Docker to build with the tag name Flask app version 1.0 and where the files are. So we will simply locate put a dot over here. Let's press enter. Okay, so there is one error. So Python 3.10 Alpine, why it is not found? So why it is not found? Why it is not? Okay, my bad. Actually, I have already switched off. For some reasons, my Wi-Fi was switched off, so that is why it was unable to locate this. Because this base image is being downloaded from the Docker repository. So let's rerun it, and let us see this time. So you can see like our Flask application has been, the Docker build has been successful. And by the way, you can see it here that whatever instruction, the order we have provided the instruction, all the commands executed in that very order. So actually you can think of these instructions as layers. So layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, 4 and so on. So here ordering is important. So ideally, in a practical purpose, whatever which should not be changed very frequently, that should be in the top order, and that is likely to be changed frequently, maybe like some code, our code. So that can be changed. We can modify our code base. So that should be on the very late order. And by the way, like whatever instructions, whatever layers, so you can also think it like the layers are cached actually. So if we rebuild again and again, so if there is any change if there is any change, then only that would be rebuilt, that layer would be rebuilt. Otherwise, it would be fetched from the cache itself. So our Docker has been built. So now we will try to, and by the way, if you are accessing the Docker desktop also, so you can here you can see, let me run it, and so for running it, so we will fire this command And here we are actually telling the Docker, we had named it Flask app 1.0. Let's run it. So our Docker is running, and you can cross check in the Docker as well. You can see what is the container. So our Flask container is running, and it is Flask app version 1.0. It is running on port 5000. 5000 is the outside port, and this 5000 port is the inside port. So if we go to our browser and reload it, so actually this time our application is running from the container. We can also cross check it if we close it here, and if we try to run it, so it is not running actually. But this time let's change the port 5000 to port 7000. Run it. Now try to run this on port 7000. So we are actually getting the our application output, and our application is working perfectly fine. And the best part is, like, see, try to understand, this is a very, I mean, you can think of it a bit complex, but it is very simple. So here our from this browser, so our outside world from our browser, we are accessing port 7000. We are trying to run this on port 7000, but actually inside our container, our application is running on port 5000. So here you can see, like, and by the way, this is our Docker. This is Docker output. We are saying it inside from a Docker output. So inside our application is running inside the container on port 5000, but the outside world, we are listening. We are running our application on port 7000. And this can be checked as well here as well. For example, you can see, like, we are running on port 7000, and we can do much more from here, from Docker desktop. So here we can also see the details as well. So this is the same output which we saw in the terminal. We can also check the files. So by the way, all this is happening just inside our container. So here comes our Flask app. This was the file, and this is our application hosted on running inside a container. So hope you liked. However, I think, like, I was able to perfectly clear all the confusion about, but in definitely in coming days or in few sessions, so we will try to explore more and more, and we'll try to learn every nuts and pieces, every pieces of all the Docker file. And by the way, there is also what if, like, we have to run multiple applications, like maybe our application requires some database as well, Nginx as well, some other services like MongoDB or React and Node.js as well. So in that situation, all this would be, this one single Docker file would be not much more sufficient. So in that case, in that situations, so definitely we should actually compose the Docker build, and for that is we will see it in the next session. So till then, so take care, and hope you enjoyed the videos, enjoyed the session. And still, if you have any confusion or any question, any query, so please do let me know. I will try to solve it as soon as possible. And by the way, I will put all the links of this build of this small application, including all the commands and the Docker file as well in my GitHub repository. So we'll check it out from there. Okay, thank you. Bye bye. Take care.